Okay. Hello. Welcome to another edition of On Tyranny, the series in which the Bad Penny is giving a platform to musicians to talk about how authoritarian America is affecting their lives, um, and what they're feeling emotionally, how the new political structure in the United States is affecting their process as artists, and what uh, um, concerns or fears or maybe even hopes they have for the future. Today, I had the very distinct pleasure of speaking with Mia from a band called MyVeronica, in a Los Angeles band. Would you consider yourself alt alt rock or emo? How would you, you know?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, yeah. I always hate asking that question because it's like, the last thing an artist wants to do is pigeonholed. But
It's hard to choose one, but yeah, you kind of got it.
That's what yeah, right. But but you just released a song about, well, actually it's back in late July now, called Second Heart, and that is from it was from an upcoming EP with another group called Friend's House, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, and then we released the split in August too.
cool, great,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you had a couple songs there, and then you've been releasing singles and I believe an EP as well, right? Over the last few years. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
correct. We put out like our first kind of big release EP in 2023, and then we've put out a couple singles since then.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. What, just before we get into the authoritarianism stuff, what inspired you to pursue music and form this band in particular?
Oof, yeah. I mean, I just love music. Like, I feel like it was very natural, I guess. I grew up like playing guitar and like playing with my dad and kind of just playing very privately and very casually. But when I got older, I feel like I got to college and I started going to DIY shows and like kind of getting involved in the punk scene here. And like, I did UCLA radio when I was in college. So we like would throw these kind of backyard shows all over the neighborhood where we were living. And I feel like from there it was very natural to like see that and then be like I want to do that and then yeah, when I was like 21, my friend and I started playing, kind of backing each other up. Like she was playing drums for me, I was playing guitar for her, and that kind of just, I never really thought I could do it either, so I was like, oh, this is like, I'm not cool like that. I'm not like that good of a musician. But then I feel like our kind of friendship helped me just make that jump and be like, okay, like it's probably not that hard. And then we put a band together and played like a first show at my apartment. And then from there, it has kind of just grown and taken off. And I feel like now I'm literally living in LA and working as a musician, doing my band, working as a music teacher. Like music is my whole entire life. And like that's the way it always should have been. Like I feel like I've really found my way to this spot that's really right for me. So it's kind of my whole entire life now.
Well, congratulations. And it's
Thank
just
you.
it's always so thrilling to hear when somebody's found their passion and that they put themselves all into it, and you've only been doing it for a couple of years, so that's pretty exciting. That
Yeah, this is like my first band, and it's been like amazing to see how much we've grown since that first show, and like how
yeah,
much, I don't know, more competent and confident that I feel doing this. And like, I'm
right.
so excited for wherever we can go from here, too. I'm hoping to just keep going.
Yeah. Was there a certain point when you realized like I can make this work? Like was it a show or was it a recording where like, you had that sort of the light bulb went off in your mind and
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess maybe when it started to feel very real was like when we put out the I Can Carry It All EP in 2023. Like
uh,
that was kind of my first time really working on, it's only three songs, but it was just like a body of work that I could present to the world and be like, I have this, this is the sound, this is like the project I've been working on for the past year. But I guess also like the life of a working musician is like never secure and like never real. Like music is not a real job anymore. So it's in a weird way. Like I guess it was when I started my band even and like my family was always like, my mom has an arts degree and she was like, don't study art. Like, they're never gonna do it. Like, you're never gonna make money doing it. Just do it for fun. And like, I feel like it took my parents a little while to come around on like music being a job too. And now my dad's like super into it too. But like, yeah, I guess it was just when I got my job working in music and like that's when I was like, okay, now I'm really out here doing this music thing and like yeah, I guess it's never like real, but I'm doing it and that's what's important. Like if you want to be something, you have to do it. So I'm doing it all the time, so I must be it, you know?
Yeah, and you are doing it, and everything I've heard from you so far is just dynamite. I only talk with artists, and I say this to everybody I interview. I only talk with artists whose music I really like and really
Oh,
dig.
thank you.
So,
Well, I appreciate it.
yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with you. It's funny you mentioned the DIY scene in LA a minute or so ago, and I lived in LA up until 2016, and it was actually the decade before that when the last real kind of DIY LA scene that I recall was centered around the Smell, that club.
Yeah,
Familiar with
it's
that?
still there.
Oh, it is still there.
It's still there. We still play there. We've played there a few times. And the first time we played there was so cool because it was like such a long lineage of amazing bands had come through there. So it was such an honor the first time we got to play there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it still smells bad in the alleyway. I think not much has changed.
Do they still have, if I'm remembering correctly, do they still have the bathroom with no door?
They have two bathrooms that have doors, but they're like completely stickered and like kind of like DIY venue
All
bathrooms.
right. Yeah. Okay. So is that sort of the central hub still for the DIY punk scene there, or
I think it's a mainstay, but I don't know if it's like the central hub. I think the weird thing is like there is no central hub right now, and like there are a lot of like house shows and stuff, but then there's a lot of DIY venues that will pop up and be there for a year or two, and then they run out of money or they can't pay their rent and they disappear, and then people keep trying and they pop up somewhere else. Like the smell has been consistent, which is amazing, and I hope they can stay open like forever and ever and ever because like they're awesome. But yeah, it's definitely tough. Like I think COVID really did a number on all the smaller venues and even like the places that aren't DIY venues but are like bars that have bands come through, like they'll throw a bunch of shows and then they kind of disappear and then someone tries to revamp it and it comes back and then it kind of disappears again. It's
yeah,
a tough economy right now.
absolutely. Yeah. So, one thing I've found to be especially fascinating as I've been talking with artists for this series, especially, and this is really specifically in terms of punk bands,
Mhm.
is it used to be, I'm significantly older than you. It used to be back in like the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the aughts that like you know, if you were a punk band, like, part of the deal was that, you know, you're obligated to speak out against injustice and against intolerance and discrimination, racism. I mean, I don't want to say dogmatic, but it was like incumbent upon you to like say something. That was part of the deal. And I feel the reason I've always respected punk and I a big punk fan myself, although I love all sorts of music, is because I just have a real respect for that ethos. And what I've found in interviewing a lot of musicians for this series is not necessarily the bands that I've interviewed, but the stories that I've heard is that that doesn't necessarily seem to be a requisite anymore. And if maybe that's not the right word, but it seems like there's a lot of bands who are call themselves punk, who don't feel like they have any interest in talking about issues along the lines of social justice. Um, I interviewed a hardcore band, I won't say who, a band that advertises itself as hardcore. And during the interview, which went on quite long, the frontman was just like drinking and smoking pot, and I was just like, it doesn't this kind of go against the whole hardcore
Yeah, I guess they're not a straight edge band.
Yeah. So my question to you, long-winded question, is to what extent do you feel obligated to speak out, and do you feel more obligated now than before, or is not so much an obligation as just like something you can't avoid discussing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's interesting to kind of hear what other bands and other places have told you too. I feel like I guess I'll unpack that in two parts. Like the first part is like I think that punk is an attitude and an energy and a belief system more than it is like an aesthetic. And I think in this day and age, we have really watered down all these aesthetics. And like, obviously, there's always the trend of subculture becoming the mainstream and then just being distilled and proliferated in all sorts of ways that have nothing to do with the original intention of it. And so I feel like the true meaning of being punk now is like, you have these beliefs, you believe you have political, urgency to speak out and advocate for people and advocate for what you believe in. But that's more important than the spiky hair and the jeans and like the aesthetics of punk. But I think, especially with like the younger generation than mine, even I'm Gen Z, but even kind of below me and like the whole TikTokification of everything, I think that it's really easy to confuse punk with like a look and like a sound even rather than like a ethos that like is kind of the most important part of all of it. So I guess that's the first part. And like
Yeah.
we are not punk in the sound really, but I guess like I believe or I feel very inspired by my predecessors in the music industry who have done things their own way. Like I mean, in the band we talk about like Fugazi all the time and how cool like certain things they did were and like that's not to say you can worship bands of the past too, because that has also become complicated, but I guess I take inspiration from like Riot Girl, which is like
Mhm.
a deeply flawed but importantly influential movement that like the
Yeah.
politics couldn't be separated from the music. I take inspiration from a lot of the like early hardcore punk that did have a message. And like
Mhm.
I think in the scene that we're in, like the we're in this kind of corner of like LA DIY shoegaze indie rock. Like I feel extremely lucky that like I've met such amazing people through it and the community that we kind of run in. It is a requirement that you have to be political, and that you have to be on the right side of things almost, and like you have to make your statements clear. Like it's not enough to just like privately hold your beliefs and like let things happen, I guess. I guess we play a lot of like benefits and stuff too, or like we played this like show that was like a fuck ice show, and like I guess to me it's just kind of assumed that like that's what you believe in if you're a part of our community,
Right.
because it's such an important integral part of it. And then I guess like for us as a band, like it's super important for me to be vocal about what we believe in and not be ambiguous.
Mhm.
And I don't know about like how that impacts us in the wider music industry, but that is like the most important part. And I feel like a lot of the bands that we're around are really just like in it for the love of the music that we're making and in it for the love of what we're doing. And so that doesn't really like
Mhm.
stop us, I guess.
Mhm.
But I guess it is a fine line too. I think that in this day and age with the social media and stuff too, there's a line between being performative and reposting infographics on your story and like that's one way to be vocal necessarily, but I don't know if that's like making the biggest social change impact.
Right.
So I don't know. It's something that I think about a lot. And I guess in this day and age, and in, I mean, the core of your series, like in this current political climate, feels more important to me than ever. And I never set out to be a political band or like, I was just making music and making fuzzy guitars in my room. And like, I guess, yeah, it's cool to me that we even have a space where we can express that and like that is important. I guess I appreciate the impetus that it puts on me as a person to really like make my values clear.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
complicated, but I feel like it's so important. And I do feel like if you're in the DIY scene especially, I think in general as a musician, if you have a platform, you should be using it for good. But I also just think like in our scene in particular, it's very important.
Yeah. Very well said. Extremely well said. That
Thank
was
you.
a beautiful answer that you gave. And yeah, I think sometimes, like the punk scene or just people who believe in um, open-mindedness and empathy and all that, they sort of over intellectualize things to an extent where it's like, and it kind of ties in with like, oh, First Amendment. So, we should give, Nazis a chance to talk at the podium as well. And it's like, no, I mean, that's like, if you're if you're going to give the microphone to somebody who says that you don't have that's preaching a message of you don't have the right to speak, then that's kind of where you draw the line. And for all, at least for me, I'm just talking about my own beliefs here. I'm not putting
Yeah.
words in your mouth, but uh, to anybody who thinks that there's a homogeneity within the punk world in terms of how views are shared, my response would be, well, those views are essentially that everybody's free to do what they want and do what they say, as long as it's not hurting other people or putting constraints on other people.
Mhm.
And it just seems kind of elementary, and it seems like as a culture we're really not we're wrestling with something that should really be an easy, it should be easy to answer this kind of question that we're battling with. Anyway, so what are the feelings that you're getting among your peers and with yourself too about the climate, and just how fast things are moving. You're in LA, so you had the Marines in there recently, and are you finding that among your peers that there's a general fear or a general like, fuck it, I'm gonna stand up and fight, or is there a real diversity of feelings? How would you kind of describe what the sentiment is among your peers, and then obviously what are you feeling too?
Yeah. I think that like I think we feel all of those things. Like I think at least personally, I ping pong around so much of just feeling like this utter despair and like especially if I go on my phone and I'm watching Instagram posts of people being shoved in vans or just any media of what's going on right now is just like horrifying and depressing, honestly. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, I feel inspired to do what I can, but also I feel kind of powerless and I feel like I don't even know what I can do. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it, and on one hand, I feel like we're living in such a horrible time, like throughout history that I just happen to be alive in. And then on the other hand, I look back in history and I remember that like horrible things have always been happening. And I think maybe also I'm just like, kind of becoming a young adult and just way more politically aware than I ever was as a kid. And they were still doing a lot of horrible shit back then too, like, which oddly is kind of comforting, but then horrible because horrible things are always happening. I think it's really complicated for me, but I
Mm.
guess lately, personally, I've been trying to focus locally more and not just like go on my phone and get into the pit of despair because that's just completely like paralyzing. And then I don't know, like I feel like I'm trying to do what I can and like use my band and just my life to do good. And also I feel like it's important to me to just go around the world doing good in my day-to-day life. And also like my career is like education. And so I feel like that has a meaningful impact. And so I try to focus on those things, but it never feels like enough. I feel like I yeah also try to like use like our merch to raise money for things that are important to us, but also like we're an indie rock band and we have really a limit on how much money we can make, but that's money that I wouldn't have been able to take out of my own pocket and donate. So like stuff like that makes me feel better, I guess, and I feel like we're just trying to do what we can, but also there is just this kind of like looming sense of futurelessness I think that my generation holds in general. I think a lot of us too feel like fingers crossed that things will get better once we get through the Trump administration, but like, what if it doesn't? I don't know. I don't even, yeah, I can't even really like think that far ahead, I guess. I think like our generation uniquely too, like isn't planning for our futures in the same way. And I feel like that's also kind of what pushes me to be like, I'm gonna do music. So not like, oh, if I go get this really good job, I'll save money. I can have two kids in a house. It's like we're probably never gonna be able to afford to buy houses anyways. Like, so much of the way that our world and economy are set up, I think it kind of gives my generation like a very present state of mind, I guess. Like we're not making long plans for the future. we don't know where the climate will be. And that's like something I can't even personally touch too much because I just death spiral about climate change. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just working personally to make the most positive change that I can without just getting like sucked into the vortex of being super depressed about all of it.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. And yeah, I guess I can't speak for all of my peers, but I think probably a lot of my friends feel kind of similarly. And I also think that it gets to the point too when there's like protests and stuff, we just feel like you have to go. Like you just feels like you have a social duty to go. And it's hard because we all work and whatever, and like we have a lot to do, but I think it gets to certain boiling points where it's like you need to go out and do something. And even if that's just to make you feel better, I don't know, being one body in a group of thousands of people can be really like empowering and kind of inspire you to go fight even more. So, yeah, it's a lot of different feelings. And then I guess I'm gonna keep talking, sorry. On
Please.
the same side of that, like making art feels like the most important thing ever to me, but then there's times when it feels like so futile and I'm like, why am I trying to write a cool indie rock guitar chord progression right now? Like that just is bullshit. That doesn't mean anything. Like the world's on fire, but I feel like I ping pong back and forth, but it's also kind of like one of the only things I can do. And I believe in the power of music because I felt that in my life. So it's not like I think I'm gonna write a song that changes the world or whatever, but I'm like that stuff is still important too, I guess,
Yeah.
even when it doesn't feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, speaking, on that note, your new song "Sacred Heart" directly addresses national disasters and fascist tyranny. So, was that uh, tell me about how that. Tell me the story about how that song came about, and what you feel like you maybe communicated in that song, in particular, that you hadn't communicated in other songs before.
Yeah, I think that as all of this goes on, my work gets more and more like less about, oh, my heartbreak, my heart's my feeling, like, and more just like global. And like we're working on our first album, and I feel like a lot of those songs are so different from like the big kind of EP that we released of like those songs felt very personal and about my world. And I can't help but write songs that are kind of reflecting the greater world around me now.
Sure.
Just as I guess like I've become more politically conscious and just like it's kind of hard to ignore what's going on. Those are the main things that I'm feeling right now. It's not like heartbreak and whatever. It's like, oh my God, like the world's on fire. But yeah, Sacred Heart is I guess my writing is very abstract too, and so I'm never kind of writing like the world's on fire. Like it's not like literal, but it's like I'm really proud of that song, I guess, because I feel like it encapsulates like what's important to me, which is like choosing love. Like so much of that song is about like
Yeah.
how it's painful to be a loving person in this world that feels so inhospitable to that, and how when it feels just like so dark, it feels like so hard to be empathetic and like it feels like the empathy that I feel can be so painful sometimes because so much horrible stuff is going on. But then the end of that song too, like we just have this repeating chorus where one of the lines is just saying, "My empathy is bringing me down," and the other line is saying, "Hold on to the sacred heart, hold on to the ones you love, hold on to the sacred heart." And like to me, that feels kind of like the answer to the question of the song that like
Hmm.
no matter how painful it is and no matter how dark it gets, it's always the love that's the most important. It's always the people in your life. And like that kind of, yeah, I guess it's like, and that song is also sonically very inspired by this kind of lane of like inspirational emo, like Jimmy Eat World and stuff like that. That like,
Right
I
on.
really love their album Clarity. And there's some really fun songs on there too that are very like, you got to keep like fighting, like don't let it get you down almost. And like sometimes it can be a little corny, but I feel like there's nothing wrong with like just trying to imbue the love and the gravity of that into my music, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to that song makes me think about how um, you know, love is sacred. It's irrefutable. It's irrefutable, and hate is not sacred, and that's also irrefutable.
Yeah, totally.
And that's I really love that new song of yours, and
Thanks. I got
um,
my Sacred Heart on right now too.
Oh, is that right? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. I find it like a little ironic too, because I took that imagery from Catholicism, which is like
Yeah.
a little ironic because there's, I know religion can be really good for some people, but also there's like serious dogma that preaches against loving all people. But I feel like just at the core of it, like it's the love, that's the most important part. And like there's
Mhm.
no room for all that other like social stuff that we like to put over it and say you can only love this, whatever. It's like the love is the core of all of it. And I wish that that was more important, I guess, in this world.
Absolutely. May I ask if you're a practicing Catholic or?
I'm not, but I was raised Catholic, so I feel like I still like to keep a lot of that imagery around.
Yeah,
I feel like that was a formative moment for me as a teenager when I decided not to be Catholic anymore. But I still I like to reclaim the whole beauty of the crosses and the hearts and the
absolutely.
candles and stuff. But I feel like I use it in a like love kind of way, not in like a
Yeah.
hatred kind of way.
Yeah, I'm Catholic too. I haven't been going to mass lately for various
Mhm.
reasons, but I still consider myself to be Catholic. And I don't know if you've read the teachings of Thomas Merton at all, but if you have a chance and you get really down on things, he was a pivotal 21st century monk who uh, wrote some incredible books and was a social justice warrior. And I refuse to let that term be denigrated. And um, he he went into a long period of solitude, and what got him out of it was the realization that um, that um, you need to be around people and living with people to experience life and
Mhm.
and to find hope. And it's just fascinating. I can go on and on about that. Um, but I do. So we've got a few minutes left here. I wanted to go back to something you said before, which was that. And you mentioned that either you have contributed songs to charity compilations or you've played charity benefits shows.
Yeah.
Which is it?
We've done both, actually. We've done quite a bit of like stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
We put some songs on like fire relief compilations when the LA fires were going on. And we've played like quite a few kind of benefit shows. And that's something I always love to do because I'm like, that's just taking my individual power and multiplying it. I like if we raise $1,000 playing a benefit like that, I would not be able to donate $1,000 to any cause of my own money. So like stuff like that, I'm always happy to do. And I think it's really cool that like our friends and associated bands are putting stuff like that on too. Like I always really appreciate when people take the time to make those things happen because I know it's a lot.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, and was that something that you sought out, or were you asked to participate on in those efforts? Or
We've mostly been asked, I guess. And then we've done like quite a bit of like merch sales and donations on our own too. And I'm always happy to do that too because I'm like, yeah, I just feel like I have to. I feel like
yeah,
that money could go in my pocket and go back into the band, which is like great, but also like I could just use that to immediately help someone, and that's amazing.
totally. Yeah. I always, as we get to the end of the conversation, I always ask my interviewees, what can people do to feel a sense um, of hope and that they're taking action and that they're doing their part, because even doing something very very small can at least make you feel better about yourself, when you're spiraling and when it does feel like all is lost. But it sounds like you touched on, you've done these charity works and you're writing songs about these important issues and what's going on. um, and you're talking with people. You got a social group. Is there anything else that I'm missing that you would suggest that people can do to make a difference, even in a
Yeah.
small scale level?
I mean, I guess when I'm spiraling, like I try to remember that the most important thing you can do is like the biggest impact you can have is in your local community and those around you. Like, as much as I would love to bring people, like save people in Gaza or like, things like that. I would love to help them. And if they were here, I would help them, but like the most immediately thing you can do is like take care of your neighbors and talk to people around you and like live in the world too. I feel like we live so online that we forget about that, but it's like get to know your neighbors and their stories, like get to know the people in the music scene and help each other. Like when someone needs something, go and help. Like when someone needs, they can't make their rent, throw a benefit show. Like you can help people in your immediate community. And that community cares like what the government will never give us. That's what these higher powers don't want you to have is like strong, united communities on the ground who will help each other when bad things happen. Like, I don't know, you can do little things too, like just, sell your zines, like, disseminate your information. It doesn't matter if you're not an artist or like or a musician or whatever, like just talking to people and like also, yeah, being forward about what you believe in. Like it can be scary because like clearly this government's just quashing any sort of dissent. Like they don't want you to be talking about any of it, but have conversations and talk about it with people and just do what you can. That something is better than nothing is what I'd like to believe. And like sometimes it's, yeah, hard to do anything, but I feel like I would rather be trying, I guess, always. And like that keeps me going too, is like the trying. I don't know what ultimate impact I can have, but I can keep trying. And like that keeps me from going into the darkness too.
Totally. Gosh, very, very, just so it's like you had uh, you already prepared all your remarks. This is just flowing so
Oh,
beautifully.
this is just like my life. Like I'm just doing my best. I wish I could always be doing more, but I'm just trying my best. And I'm like, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I guess I can say that.
Yeah. Well, I will say, as someone who has been involved in a lot of social justice efforts over the past, the number one concern in what you're taught from day one when you get involved with an effort like that is be careful of the burnout factor. You have
Mhm.
because it can take it can take so much out of you. Even like an hour long interaction with someone who's really suffering can really just sap you of everything. So
Mhm.
if you want to be in it for the long haul, pace yourself and really, be careful and organized and judicious about how you're using your time effectively, and
Mhm.
that you're doing the best you can, but also that you're not self-sacrificing too much, and we live in such a world that's me focused, so I'm not trying to promote that. I'm just saying like
Yeah,
we
it's all
need people like
balance.
you. Yeah, we need people like you to be out there and doing what you're doing. So so please don't burn out. um,
Thank you.
yeah. So I guess this leaves us a little time to can you give us a little insight or preview into the album, what's going to be about, or is it
Um,
early for that, or
well, I guess I'll plug this. Like, we're playing a show on October 16th in LA where we're going to play a bunch of unreleased music. It's a new series that they're doing at this DIY venue. And so that is where, if you're in LA, you can hear it, I guess. Yeah, so we're going to be playing those. I don't know. I'm still putting all the tracks together and we're still writing. But I guess the overarching themes are, I don't know, kind of just like getting back to the Sacred Heart, me not being able to sleep, which I'm actually doing better at now. But yeah, I don't know, just the My Veronica vibe, I guess. Like we're just expanding into a new sound and I don't know, kind of continuing on the path, but just branching out in all these different directions, I guess.
Cool. Did you mention the venue where that show's happening and what
It's
date?
called LAX, but they're framing it as like a secret location that you have to RSVP to get the address for. So it's like secret location, but it's LAX,
Okay.
not the airport.
Are you right? Are you able to point anybody who's watching this interview to the direction of where they can find information about it, or is it just
Yeah, I just posted about it on our Instagram. So it's like My Veronica, but the E is a three.
okay?
Yeah, any info about us, the shows, the album, they can find there or on our website, which is myveronica.neocities.org.
Cool. And then you got a Bandcamp page too, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're on all the platforms.
Is it bandcamp.com/ my Veronica hyphen something like that, or
Probably. Yeah, if you search My Veronica on Bandcamp, you can find it.
it's funny because before this interview, I kept thinking like, My Sharona, but hey,
Not quite.
it's been such a pleasure, Mia, to talk with you. You're
Yeah, thanks so much for talking to me. I
the most
appreciate it.
perfect person for this conversation, and you've been terrific. I can't thank you enough, and I
Well,
admire what you're doing. And I want you to know how courageous you are and how brave what you're doing is. You might not think it, or maybe you do, but I want you to know that. And so I'm going to let you go before you cut off. But thank you very much, and I'm
thanks so much for talking to me.
very excited
For
about
doing
the
this series too. I'm like, it's so interesting.
cool. Yeah, thanks. And I'll be in touch about the new album.